So this class is inspired by some comments and some questions I've had from students recently around physical issues that may keep you from sitting comfortably for long periods in the seated practices. And so I thought I'd offer a special class just to help us address those issues, which are oftentimes associated with lower back, the core, hamstrings, that kind of thing. So if it's challenging for you to sit comfortably because of lower back stuff, for example, this may help you. This class may help you. And as always, I encourage you to seek the advice of a medical professional. This is obviously not medical advice, but hopefully it offers some assistance in sitting more comfortably because I'm about to offer a meditation workshop, for example, or a meditation course, and it's so important to be able to sit comfortably for meditation. So, with all of that, let's just make sure you have a strap if your hamstrings are tight. And this class will be no music, so feel free to put on your own music. And let's just jump right in. So we'll start with 3 ohms, coming to as comfortable a seat as you can for the opening here. We'll move right away, but we'll start with 3 ohms. So sitting tall, just closing your eyes, coming to into yourself, coming into the space. Bring your hands to Namaskar in front of the heart. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. One more time, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And let's inhale to Om. And then just sit quietly for a breath. Keep your eyes closed. It's so important in life to have mindful transitions between different activities, different locations. Deep breath. And opening your eyes. Okay. So let's start with a couple of simple nurturing poses. So coming into child's pose, the knees are wide. You can have the right big toe over the left big toe. And then just coming forward here, walking the hands out away from you, letting the forehead touch the floor if you can. And then start to try to find that length through the arms as you also sit back towards the heels. Now, you're not using a ton of effort, but try to find that balance where you're sitting back, but you're also reaching forward. Finding some length in the shoulders. And just letting yourself totally surrender into the pose. And just letting yourself be wherever you are in this pose. Okay. And then walking your hands back towards you, coming back up. We'll swing the feet out in front of us. We'll come onto our backs, coming into Supta Padangusthasana, or Hasta Padangustasana, Supta Hasta Padangustasana. And so here you want to have the strap handy if you need it. We're just going to be bringing our right knee in towards the right shoulder, hugging that in. Left leg is long, and then grab a hold of your big toe or the strap around the foot. You want to extend the leg so you're getting a stretch through the calf muscle and the hamstrings here. Your shoulder ideally is on the floor, on the mat. And so, it's early in the sequence. Your hamstrings may be a little tight like mine are because we're not warmed up, but try to keep, so with the strap, that's why if you're too high up or, you're really struggling here, the strap can be helpful. Just breathing into the hamstrings. Okay, and then if you have it in your practice, if it's accessible for you, you can lower the foot out to the side. Keep the left hand on the left hip. Try to keep both shoulders on the floor. Breathing into the hamstring. And as we go through this sequence, just remind yourself that the most important thing is honoring your own limitations. So we're not pushing at all in this sequence, and if you can't do a pose, it's totally fine to take child's pose or just just sit quietly or lie down or wherever we are. I'll give you options as we go through it. Letting go of that foot, extending the right leg out, bring the left knee in towards the shoulder, and then let's extend our leg. You're flexing the left foot towards your shoulder. The leg is engaged, the leg is strong. And if you're way out there, it's totally fine. There's nowhere to go. It's just being here now as we're doing this practice. And then letting your foot fall out to the side here. I've got my bookcase in the way, but so I'm just going to stay here. But okay, one more breath. Okay, and then letting that leg go. From here, just take a breath in the very premature Shavasana. Just giving yourself total freedom to approach this practice with softness and with as little sort of overdoing anything as possible. Okay, and then from here, you can bring your knees into your chest and then start to rock along your spine until you can come up to seated. Let's come into a brief Baddha butterfly pose. This is going to help to start to access the lower back and to open up the hip here too. It's kind of a bonus. So you get a win-win here. You're opening up the groin area, the inner thigh, and you're starting to lengthen the spine and find some strength in the lower back. Okay. Okay. And then take your hands to bring the knees together. We'll hug in again. And then come to standing. You can move your props out of the way. And so I wanted to explore a little bit. So Uttanasana, forward folding. There's a pretty good modification, more restorative modification, where if you have something you can kind of place your hands on, you can use that to come into a more restorative variation of this pose. So you're here, your legs are still strong and engaged, and ideally your arms are long, you're lengthening through the spine here still, but it's giving you maybe more of a relaxed way to come into a hamstring stretch and a little bit of a calf stretch here too. So you're folding from the hips. Just coming into whatever modification you need to feel the stretch in the hamstrings. Of course, feel free to take the full one as well. We're just going to hang out here for another breath. Okay, and then coming back up, let's come to Tadasana. Okay, so I'm gonna go. It's gonna be it's not gonna be a vinyasa flow. It's gonna be more of a hatha sequence, but occasionally we may make some quick transitions. So it'll be a little, just as we need to. Okay. So from here, let's come into Utkatasana, so chair pose. We're just going to start to play with some different ways of strengthening the lower back from a standing position. So this is Utkatasana. And then bringing the hands to prayer. Coming back up. Okay, I'm gonna come into a horse pose. This may be less familiar for some folks. So in horse pose, we're gonna take a wider stance. The feet are about just outside the mat. They can be a little bit in. With this pose, you really want to experiment with your body and where you're at with your body and your hips and everything. But the idea here is you're gonna come down, and there's different versions of horse, but the one we're gonna do is where we're gonna try to have the goal is to have our thighs level with the floor. That's more advanced maybe. So if you're up here, that's totally fine. But you want to have this Utkatasana spine. So you're bending from the hips. Your spine is long, relatively neutral. So you're not going to be overarching or over rounding it either. So try to keep that. I mean, you may find it that it may actually arch a little bit, but that's fine. So we're here, and then we're gonna extend our arms. Doesn't have to be level to the floor. You can have them up a little bit. If you need to turn the feet out, that's fine. Find the position of your feet that works for you. Okay. Coming back up, taking a break here. And it's good to this is a good one to do just on your own, just as a separate pose. Maybe in the middle of the day to take a break from sitting or from work or whatever. So let's come back into it. Breathing into the hips. We're trying to get at some of the congestion that may be coming at us, from the hip area, pulling in different ways. And so in this sequence, we're gonna be working with the lower back, of course, and the hamstrings, and the hip flexors a little bit, and just different parts of this kind of core unit. The core unit, of course, is quite extensive. It includes the abdominal muscles, of course, but then all the muscles around it, lower back, the hips. It's all part of this one unit, the core unit. So, okay, so that's horse. And if you have it in your practice, I'm just going to show you this is two. We're gonna revisit this, but we can do this transition from horse to malasana. And so here, again, you want to try to find that foot position that works for your malasana. And then we're just going to be coming here in malasana. Of course, we're maintaining length in the spine as well. And then we can fold forward from there. And then let's return to horse. And so if you do this on your own, just work on, maybe you start with 10 or 15 seconds. and then you come up for a break, and then you do like maybe 5 reps, and then you come back into it. Maybe you start lengthening the duration as well. And again, the goal is to have your thighs eventually be parallel or level with the floor. Your spine is long, okay? Okay. All right. So let's come through a little bit of more of a flow. So inhale the arms up, Tadasana, exhaling, folding forward. And then inhale, look forward. Place your hands on your shins if you need to. And then let's step the feet back. We'll come through knees, chest, chins, so lowering the knees. And then coming through. And then coming up into a low cobra. And then pushing back. Let's take a child's pose here. Okay, and then tucking the toes, we'll come into our first down dog. Lengthening through the shoulders, so you're going to have a little bit of an external rotation in the arms. The hands are grounding through all 5 fingers of each hand. The palms are on the mat. You can pedal the feet, start to feel those calves a little more. We said hello to the calves in the first sequence, but now we're going to say hello again. Okay. And then inhale that right leg up behind you. And then let's step that forward. Come into a low lunge, so we're going to lower the left knee. And then inhale the arms up. Exhale the hands down, stepping back. Let's come back through again, knees, chest, chin. And this one, let's pause here with the chest on the floor. If you have the flexibility or the mobility, clasp your hands behind you. This just gives you a nice, different kind of access to the chest and the upper shoulders. And then bring the hands back down. Cobra, maybe lift a little bit higher. Maybe take the hands off the floor. Okay, and then lowering the hands, pushing back. Inhale the left leg up behind you, and then bring that forward. Lower the right knee. And Anjaneyasana. Feeling a stretch through the right hip flexor here. And then exhaling the hands down. Let's step forward to the top of the mat from there. Inhale, look forward, and then exhale, fold forward. Inhaling all the way up. And then exhale the hands down. Okay. So we're going to take horse again. I'm going to face you this time. So wide stance. You can go even wider if it feels good. So just again, experiment with the placement of your feet. But this pose alone is going to be great for addressing a lot of the issues you may be having with sitting comfortably. Okay, coming back up. Adjust the feet if you need to. We'll come into our malasana here. And then straightening the legs, folding forward. This is a wide-legged Uttanasana. Okay, inhaling back up, back to the top of the mat, Tadasana. Inhale the arms up, and exhale, folding forward. Inhale, look forward, and then stepping back, and come into plank. And let's hold plank here for a moment. engaging through the core, engaging the legs, and then lowering all the way to the floor slowly if you can. Keeping those elbows in, untuck the toes, and then here we're going to come into Shalabhasana. So bring the hands behind you, lifting the feet. In this pose, of course, we're thinking more of lengthening in both directions. You can extend the arms if you like. We're lengthening here, we're not so much focused on lifting as high as we can. You can have the feet wide or feet coming together eventually. And then bring the hands down. And then turn your head to one side. And let's come back into Shalabhasana. So in this one, you can clasp the hands behind you. Again, if this doesn't feel right in your lower back, you can come into Sphinx pose instead. See how that feels. If that doesn't feel good either, then you can just take Child's Pose. But, we're starting to play around here with coming into different... We're warming up the spine, but we're also starting to access those lower back muscles. Okay, so let's come into Sphinx now. So in Sphinx, we're thinking of lengthening the spine. Our elbows are underneath our shoulders. We're kind of isometrically pulling ourselves forward as we lengthen the legs up behind us. And so we're getting a nice round, gentle back bend. Neck is long. Okay. And then from here, pushing back, Adho Mukha, downward dog. As we go through this sequence, just think of surrendering into each pose. So letting the pose kind of envelop you. And so in that way, we're not exerting so much effort. Okay. Inhale the right leg up behind you, and then bring the knee towards the nose. Inhale the leg back up. Exhaling, knee to nose. Back up, knee to nose. And then bring that right foot out to the side, coming into drunken triangle. So your left foot is flat on the floor. Both legs are strong and engaged. You're lifting the left hip towards the sky. You're opening towards the sky, gazing upwards. There's a celebratory bhava to this pose. Okay, and then bring that left hand back down. Come back to your down dog. Okay, and then inhale the left leg up behind you. Then bring it forward to your knee to nose. Inhale back up, knee to nose. And one more time. Knee to nose, and then we're gonna come into our drunken triangle, other side, so the left foot goes out. I'll face you. So the bottom arm, the hand is forward a little bit, so you're not perpendicular here. Your arm is actually at a little bit of an angle going away from you to keep some more structural integrity that way. In this kind of pose, we don't want to have all the weight straight down on the arm, or at least it's not as taxing this way. Flexing your left foot, lifting that right hip. Okay, and then bringing the right hand back down. Let's come through Child's Pose again. This sequence, I think it's important for us to revisit this pose at least a few times. Okay, let's come into our down dog. And then inhale the right leg up behind us. Step it forward between the hands. Let's come into Virabhadrasana 1. So in this pose, this is also very good for addressing some of these issues you may have with sitting. Here, we're getting a nice opening through the hip flexor again on the left side. Legs are strong. Hips are relatively square to the front of the mat. You can take a wider stance if you need to. Slight back bend here. Lengthening through the spine. Exhale the hands down, step back. And then from here, you can come either through Cobra, knees, chest, chin, or you can do a vinyasa. Coming back to down dog, inhale the left leg up behind you. Let's step that forward, coming into our Vira 1. Breathing here. Surrendering into the pose. Breathing, breathing. Okay, exhale the hands down. Come through vinyasa or cobra. And let's just step the right foot forward. We'll come into a high lunge. So in high lunge, in this one we're going to try to access a little bit more our core in different ways. So if you just lower your left knee here, you should feel more of a stretch in the quad and the hip flexor. But try to keep that spine tall. You don't want to be arching too much. So your spine is tall here. And that's going to give us more access to that hip flexor stretch. So bending, let's straighten. Okay. And then we're going to come into a twist here, but only if it feels good. So if twisting for you doesn't feel good, then definitely just stay in your high lunge. But yeah, so you want to think of, you're going to have the I'll show you this way. So we're going to be twisting here. So we want to maintain that length in the spine as we twist, and then we come into the twist. And we're lifting the hips up, and we're thinking of generally lifting, to give us more length in the spine. So we're really trying to come into spaciousness with the core here. Make sure that left leg stays strong. Okay, and then coming back, let's place the hands on the floor. Bring both hands inside the right foot, just for a few breaths. Think of moving the sit bones apart towards the edges of the mat, even though it's not possible, but we're trying to just come into more spaciousness in that area. Okay. And now from here, let's actually come into Prasarita. So we're going to just turn towards the side. We're going to bring the feet parallel, long spine, and then folding just as far as you can. And the full expression, the hands are in line with the feet. Legs are strong and engaged. Again, just making friends with your body, making friends with your legs, with your back. Asking your body what it wants you to know. What is it trying to tell you? Okay. And then let's turn to the other side. And so we're going to come back through kind of in reverse. And so now our hands are inside the left foot. Sort of a modified lizard pose. Okay. And now let's come into our high lunge. And now let's bend the right knee, starting to access the front of the right leg more, the hip flexor. Make sure this left knee is staying over the left ankle as we keep the torso, it's not rounding so much, but it's just vertical, long spine. Finding that angle that works for you where you're working, but you're not working too hard. Okay. And then coming back to full expression of high lunge, crescent lunge. And now we're going to twist we lean forward, we lengthen, and then we bring the elbow outside the knee. Again, we're lifting the hips. We're not going to come into any we want to maintain that left knee over the left ankle, but we're lifting a little bit to give us that that little boost, that little extra length in the spine. Gazing up softly. Okay. And then from here, stepping back, coming through your vinyasa. Or you can keep doing the cobra. And then let's bring the knees out wide. We'll come back into our child's pose. Okay. Coming back up, let's come to all fours. And let's do a few cat-cows. Just throw that into the middle of the sequence here. Never hurts to do some of these. At this point, our spine should be nice and warm. So we're really just giving our hips a little bit more of a little more mobility here, a little bit more fluidness. Hopefully you're starting to feel a little bit more spaciousness in the lower back and the hips. Okay, pushing back to your down dog. And look forward between the hands. Step to the top of the mat. There's no jumping. If we're going to be working on these lower back and sort of sitting issues, we shouldn't be doing any jumping because it's only going to make it worse. So always walking to the next position. Uttanasana. If you have a nice, convenient location to do this variation, feel free to do the hands on a ledge variation. Okay, and now we're going to come up to our Tadasana, inhaling all the way up. Let's pause here, hands to Namaskar in front of the heart. And let's come back to our old friend, horse. You almost want to be wearing a cowboy hat for this sequence, I guess. Okay. So, wide stance. You can use the mat again as measurement. So, feet are about, mat width roughly, depending on your mat. And so here, we're coming back into this pose. Let's see if we can hold it for 30 seconds. Just coming into it as far as you can. Don't overdo it. The arms are long. The arms here are just giving us almost that intentionality of going, up and out, so it's just that extra lengthening sort of intention that we need for the spine. Okay, and then folding forward, giving our lower back a little break here. Okay, and then if it feels right, let's come back through Malasana here. Especially now that we're a little bit more warmed up, this should be even more juicy. Okay. You can bring your hands out wide. This is a pose that's actually a little challenging for me. And I have good days and bad days with it. Okay. Straightening the legs, folding forward. And then coming all the way up. Okay, let's just take a little break here with blooming lotus. So we'll take the feet hip width apart, and we'll just drop into this Leia movement. Inhaling the hands up in front of our closed eyes, and then exhaling the hands down, exhaling through the nose as we form the shape of a lotus flower or a series of lotus flowers. Very slowly, very meditative. Inhaling through the nose, and exhaling through the nose. Eyes are closed. See if you can go even slower. Okay. After this round, just come back to Samastitihi. So lower the hands out to the sides, palm facing forward. Take a breath here. Okay. So inhaling the arms up and exhale forward. Inhale, look forward, and exhale, stepping to the back of the mat. No jumping, remember? Okay, and then let's come through our knees, chest, chin here. And let's revisit Shalabhasana. Okay, any variation you want, you can clasp the hands. You can extend the arms in front of you. We're working on strength here. We're not going to do any serious back bends in this because I think if you're having these issues, that can oftentimes exacerbate it. Okay. Lowering the hands and then tucking the toes, coming back through down dog. Hips are going towards the sky. External rotation in the upper arms. Inhale the right leg up behind you. And bring it forward. Coming into Virabhadrasana 2. So I'll turn this way. Vira 2. Breathing. Let's reverse the warrior. Feeling a nice lengthening in the side body here. And then coming forward, back through Vira 2 briefly, and then coming into Parsvakonasana, so side angle. You can have the forearm on the thigh, or if you can take your hand down to the floor or on a block, just make sure that you're not losing the integrity of the pose. So you want to keep that chest opening towards the sky. That left hip is over the right hip. Arm is long past the left ear. And come back up to Vira 2. Straighten that right leg, and then bring the arms straight back to kind of like almost like a combination of those two poses that we just did. So here, you're just kind of maintaining that length in the spine, length in both sides of the side body. This is going to give us a little bit more, different kind of working the core here. So we're working a different part of the core here. So just strong here, breathing. Legs are strong, feet are grounded. And then come back up to Vera 2. And so with these poses, now you can come into Ardha Chandrasana if you have it in your practice. Feel free to use a block. These are I'm just giving you all the options you can use for accessing poses. These poses are giving us access to like lengthening the hamstrings, but also strengthening the core at the same time. A lot of these poses. So, Ardha Chandrasana. Here, your hips are stacked. We don't want to be collapsing, so make sure you use a block, or you can even, you could use your ledge again if you have a ledge. Just make sure that you're getting the stretch in the hamstring here. You're not falling over and just trying to go too far. You can take a variation, Japasana, if you have it. Okay, letting that go if you have the variation. And then stepping back slowly, back through our Vira 2, hands to Namaskar, straighten the front leg. And then let's just come back down with the hands, stepping back through Chaturanga, Urdhva Mukha, Adho Mukha. Okay, other side, left leg up, step it forward, Vira 2, so your feet are in a line, your heels are in a line, back foot is either parallel to the back of the mat or toes forward a little bit. Hips are open to the side of the mat. It's an open hip pose. Reversing. And then coming forward to your Parsvakonasana. Whatever variation you had on the first side. Surrendering into the pose. Letting the pose take you dancing with the pose, really. Okay, back up. And now we come into this variation. If you need to move the back foot in a little bit for this, it's totally fine. And then here, the beauty of this pose is that we're accessing, you're lengthening through the hamstring, but we're also strengthening through the core, as I mentioned. And try to keep this open stance. You don't want to be collapsing forward, twisting too much towards the mat. If you just want to have one hand up, that's fine. Play with the arms a little bit. Just don't put too much weight on your knee joint. And then back up, coming through Ardha Chandrasana if you have that in your practice. You can use a block here. Take any variations that you might have. Standing leg is strong. Okay. And then floating back gently. Coming back through, straightening the left leg. Hands to Namaskar. And then coming forward. Stepping back. Just coming back into your down dog. And then lower the knees out to the side. Sit bones go back towards the heels. Child's pose. Deep breaths in child's pose. Okay, coming back up, tucking the toes. Let's come through one last standing pose. Inhale the right leg up behind you. And then step that forward. We'll come into our Vira 1, so Warrior 1. And then we're going to place the hands on the hips. And then you're going to scoot that back foot in a little bit. So we're going to come into our pyramid pose here. So really square those hips to the top of the mat. Lengthen through the spine. And then fold forward from the hips. Hands on the mat, hands on blocks. Again, here you want to maintain that length in the spine. You can be up a little bit if you need to. As long as you're feeling a stretch in the back of that right leg, that's the pose. Optionally, you can take twisted variation, so you want to bring that left hand either underneath your chest or outside the foot. You can use a block here as well, maintaining strong legs. That right arm is extending upwards, straight out of your, sort of like straight up towards the ceiling, so don't go out too far with it. Okay. And then whichever way you were before, let's place the hands back on the hips. Come through our Prasarita here, so turning the feet parallel. Lengthening the spine here as well. And then let's come into any variation, but if you can, grab a hold of the outside edges of your feet. Actually, the heels more, so your hands are back towards the heels. Lengthening through the spine, and then keeping those legs strong. Spine long. Folding here. Okay, how's everyone doing? Okay, we're coming in towards the end here. Trying to decide if we should do another horse. I'm sure you guys can do it on your own. So from here, actually, let's just come back up onto your hands. So your spine is relatively parallel to or level with the floor, and then let's come into kind of a skandasana. So whatever variation you want, you can kind of keep both feet on the floor and just kind of move your hips over towards the right. You can actually turn that left heel, left foot. You can come here. Whatever variation feels right for you. Keep that left leg engaged in any case. Trying to maintain some length in the spine here, as always. Okay, and then shifting over to the other side. Same variation that you took on the first side. Okay, and now let's come back to center. We got to finish the other side of that Parsvottanasana. And so we turn to the other side. This is our right leg forward. Sorry, our left leg forward. So left leg is forward. You want to make sure that right foot is in. Let's reset by coming up to standing. Okay. And then we'll refold here. So if you took a variation on the first side, go ahead and take that. If you need to move that foot in a little bit more, that's fine. Whew. You might feel it in your IT band like I do. Okay. And from here, inhaling back up. Let's come back through where we started. So that was Virabhadrasana 1. So you're gonna scoot that right foot back, and now we're gonna come into our Vira 1 just for a breath. And then bring the hands, exhaling forward, down to the mat. And we'll come through one final vinyasa if it's in your practice. You can also just come through down dog. Take a breath in down, dog. And then inhale that right leg up behind you. And let's bring the shin forward, coming into a pigeon. So that left leg is out long behind you. You can flex your right foot to protect the knee, lengthening through the spine, and then coming forward. You can place your hands in a pile underneath your forehead, or bring the arms long and just place your forehead on the floor. If your hips are really tight, you can place a folded blanket or a block or a cushion or a pillow or something underneath your right hip, either to give it support, but also, to give it almost like some encouragement. Okay, and then walking the hands back. Coming back to down dog. And then inhale that left leg up behind you. Bring that left shin forward. Coming into our pigeon on the other side. Akapada Raja Kapotasana. And lengthening forward. Okay, walking the hands back. Pushing back to down dog. Look forward between your hands and then just step to the top of the mat. Again, no jumping in this sequence. Uttanasana, folding forward. Inhaling all the way up. Coming through your Tadasana. And if your strap is handy, we're going to finish with one final standing pose. I think I said we were done before, but this is just our last little balancing pose here. So basically we're coming through, finishing with where we started almost. And so we're going to be taking Hasta Padangusthasana here standing. And so, the traditional way would be taking peace sign fingers around the toe, extending the foot out. But again, here, just like on the floor, you want to have your shoulder relatively neutral. And so you can use the strap. You can either kind of wrap it around or create a loop with the strap. And then you can just use that. Left hand is on the hip. Your standing leg needs to be strong and engaged. That's the most important thing here. Flexing that right foot though. And then you can bring it out to the side if you feel charmed to do so. Using the left hand for balance if you need to. And then from here, actually changing hands, we'll come into a little twist. So the traditional way to do this would be to have the left hand on the outside edge of the right foot. You're gazing out over your right hand with your standing leg still strong. Okay, and then we'll come back through. You can interlace your fingers around your right knee just to come back to neutral here before you lower the right foot down. Okay. And we'll change sides using the strap or just using your fingers if you can. I'll use the strap just for demonstration purposes. And, my hamstrings are a little tight today, so. Strong standing leg. Listening to the body. What is the body telling us? Ideally in asana, we're maintaining our attention on every cell of the body. I think Iyengar said that maybe. Changing to this way. This is actually easier, at least for me, with the toe wrap. Okay, and then if you want, if you're charmed, you can take the twisting variation. Standing leg is strong still. Okay, and then interlace fingers around the knee, tall spine, and lower the left foot. Okay, shake out the legs. Whew, shaking it out here. Okay, well, move your strap out of the way if you use a strap. Just for old time's sake, let's do one final brief horse. And so we'll come into horse here. Hopefully at this point now we're feeling a little bit more open here, a little bit more spaciousness around the hips, around the lower back, and in the hamstrings as well. I don't think this is a traditional asana pose, so I don't think there's a Sanskrit name for it, but I think horse is good enough for us. Okay, and then from here, coming to Utkatasana, so bring your feet together. Similar pose here, containing the hips more, of course. Shifting the weight back into the heels. And then hands to prayer as we lower the sit bones towards the heels. And then from here, slowly if we can, only if it feels good for you. Otherwise, use your hands. We're going to lower back onto our sit bones. Okay, so we're actually gonna I'm gonna demonstrate a couple of additional poses you can play with. These are a little bit more advanced depending on your practice, but these are also good for accessing those lower back issues you may be having. So, of course, the first one is going to be halasana. So here, you want to make sure you have enough space, and then you're gonna kind of use your arms to kick your feet over your head. And then you can interlace the fingers. So the toes are on the floor. Traditionally, the spine is long here. Mine's probably a little bit rounded, but what's great about this pose is you really feel it in the lower back. I mean, it just feels like a nice opening, nice gentle opening here. If it doesn't feel that way, come out of it or come into a variation. So a variation here could be bending the knees and letting them come towards the ears, but of course this is potentially more of a stretch in the lower back. So that's just another option though. Again, back out of it if it doesn't feel right. And then, just one last thing. If you have this in your practice, you can bring your arms over your head. You can grab a hold of your big toes with your peace sign fingers. Start to straighten the legs. Bring the feet wide. Lengthen that spine. This is another one. This is a variation of, this is a kind of a Kanasana pose. This is I forget the name exactly. It's Kanasana. So you're lifting. You want to make sure you're lifting the hips towards the sky here. Legs are engaged now. Okay. And then you can finish here by keeping your fingers around your toes, big toes. Bring the feet back together. And then you can start to kind of roll the spine vertebrae by vertebrae back down as you maintain the hold of those big toes. Kind of coming into almost like a inverted Paschimottanasana. Okay, and then here we can finish with very gentle. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but my lower back just released a little bit, which felt really good. So hopefully you're experiencing some of the same. Placing the palms down on the floor underneath your buttocks. Bring the elbows underneath you. Feet are flexed. And then lowering the top of the head towards the floor. Gentle back bend here. Legs are engaged. Try to lift a little bit to get some of that congestion out of the shoulders. Okay. And then walking the elbows out and coming back onto your back. We'll finish here just with an easy twist. So bring the right knee in, scoot the hips out to the right a little bit, and then twist to the left. Gazing out over the right shoulder. And then coming back to center, changing sides, changing the legs. Scooting the hips out to the left a little bit, and then twisting out to the right. Gazing over the left. Okay, now coming back to center. Just hug the knees into the chest if you can. Let's rock back and forth a little bit on the lower back and just feeling, using the floor to help us give our back a little bit of a massage. Okay, and then happy baby if you feel like taking it. The spine is long on the floor, ideally. Okay, and let's come into Shavasana here. Now, given this theme of the class, you can either take full Shavasana or you can keep the feet on the floor and just let your knees fall together. So your feet walk out a little bit wider than hip width and your knees fall together. You can use this variation if it feels better. Gives you the lower back a nice little bit of a break here. Okay, so I'm going to leave you in Shavasana. But hopefully that was helpful. Feel free to practice horse intermittently throughout the day and all the rest of the poses as well. So yeah, again, we're by accessing and lengthening the hamstrings and strengthening the lower back, we're hopefully giving ourselves a little bit more structure down there and a little bit more space as well. So we, in the sequence, we move through poses that gave us strength and flexibility in that area. Thank you so much for joining me. Hari Om Tat Sat. I'll see you next time.